bread mixes are so convenient to have on your pantry shelf. Not only do they come in handy in a pinch, but they taste so incredible, you just might decide it's something you want to do on a regular basis. Let's face it, homemade bread intimidates a lot of people. Now, my mixes will take the guesswork out of the dough, and hopefully you'll feel confident as you bake. I've been creating all sorts of shelf-stable recipes for my channel for the past several years, and bread mixes are still some of our most frequently used mixes in our home. Today, I'm going to show you my favorite sandwich loaf, my husband's favorite cornbread mix, an Artisan bread mix that can double as pizza dough, and by the way, it's incredible and oh so easy. My biscuit mix is perfect for cooking just a couple at a time if that's what you need to do, and my English muffin bread mix is actually a batter bread that literally anyone can make. There's no kneading involved. If proofing yeast intimidates you, or if you haven't made homemade bread in the past because you thought it was too difficult or you weren't sure about the technique, watch this video and see if making bread doesn't seem a little more approachable. Welcome to the Freeze-Dried Foodie, where you'll find delicious recipes using freeze-dried ingredients. Now, it doesn't really matter what brand you have. So many of us have this type of food on our shelves. On this channel, I'll show you how I cook with mine. For this first recipe, I've got a mix for a loaf of sandwich bread. Now, you can use this yeast bread for more than just sandwiches, of course, but it's one of the easiest homemade bread mixes out there. It's ready in about an hour, believe it or not, because there's only a rest period while the oven preheats. There's not a traditional rise period for the dough. So it's pretty much like miracle bread. I'm going to start by putting my ingredients in a 24-ounce jar. That's a 3-cup jar. It's right in between a pint and a quart. If you don't have that jar, just don't worry about it. Just bump up to the quart jar. I like these jars because they're cute in pictures, but I know not everybody can get their hands on one, so don't worry about that. Just use a quart. In the bottom of the jar, you can put the yeast and then 2.5 cups of all-purpose flour. I like to include some butter powder in this recipe just because it gives a great flavor, especially when it's paired with the honey crystals. The honey butter in there is just really, really nice. And then you've got a teaspoon of kosher salt, and that's it. That's all that's going to go into your jar. There's just 5 ingredients that go into this jar. And so simple ingredients, easy to make bread. I'm telling you, it's super easy. Anybody can do this, and it's really quick. Ready in under an hour, start to finish. So there is your jar that you could keep stored on your pantry shelf. And if you try the recipe and if you like the recipe, you can make several at a time. Just be sure to check your expiration date on your yeast and use it by then. Whenever you're ready to make it, you'll need to get out a stand mixer that's fitted with a dough hook. Now, I was just testing my water temperature. I'd like to have it somewhere between 100 and 110. Just warm water out of the tap, a cup of that, and then 1 tablespoon of some sort of oil. I used an avocado oil. And then you can empty the contents of the jar into the bowl, and you can start mixing. Now, I'm going to show you what your dough should look like and what it should not look like, okay? When I started mixing, this is what it looked like. And that is not what we're looking for. And the reason I know that's not what we're looking for is because it's sticking to the sides of the bowl and it's sticking to the bottom too. And that's just not enough flour. You never quite know exactly how much flour to put in. It depends on weather and it depends on elevation, stuff like that. So you can add a tablespoon of additional flour at a time and mix it up and see what it looks like. So for me, I ended up adding, I think, 3 tablespoons of flour. See how it's sticking on the bottom there, but not on the sides? Still not enough flour. I had to add some more. Now, that's what I'm looking for. It's not sticking to the sides and it's not sticking to the bottom. That's exactly right. So at that point, you need to knead this for 5 minutes. And yeah, you can do this by hand, but I would knead it for probably 10 minutes. All right, so after that time, this is what your dough looks like. And And that's what it sounds like. You should be able to slap it. So it's just slightly tacky, but definitely not sticky. And put it in a sprayed bowl and cover that and let it rest for 20 minutes. And during the rest period, go ahead and preheat your oven because that's it. You don't need a rise time, believe it or not. This is, like I said, it's like a miracle bread. So this is what it looks like just after 20 minutes. That rest time, it really is all it needs. And this dough, it's just like so easy to work with. I turned it out onto some flour, but you don't even really need to do that. It's very easy to work with. So all you want to do is pat it out into a rectangle. And I saw a lady named Robin on the Farm on YouTube, and she showed a technique where she folds in her sandwich dough like head and shoulders, knees and toes. Just like the little kids song. It's head, shoulders, knees, and then toes. And then you just roll it right up. And that is your sandwich loaf. You can tuck in the sides. And I slap it on the counter a couple of times. Just make sure there's no air pockets in there. Pat it flat, tuck in the edges, and into a greased loaf pan. That's it. Now, if you've made bread before, this is going to go against all conventional wisdom, but trust me on this. Into the oven, straight in the oven. I did not let that rise, guys. 350 for about 25 to 30 minutes. At the 15-minute mark, that is what it looked like. I mean, just look at the rise on that. I'm telling you, this is miracle bread. Now, after about 27 minutes, I pulled mine out, and gosh, isn't that just gorgeous? Look how much it rose in the oven. I still am in awe of this bread. I just love it. I do like to butter the outside of my bread. I think everybody loves a butter crust. I think y'all are gonna love the way your kitchen smells at this point. It's very difficult to do, but you do need to allow that to cool completely in the pan, and then it should just pop right out. I had to take some pictures of the whole loaf. I just think she's so cute. Yeah, and then it'll be ready to slice up. I got that cool bread knife at Goodwill. It's from the Texas Bread Knife Company. But gosh, just look at that slice of sandwich bread. The crumb is gorgeous. It's very tender. This bread makes perfect sandwiches. I love to toast it in the toaster. I love to put some butter on it and grill it. I also like to just put some butter on it and eat it because it's delicious. And the way your house will smell when you bake this bread, it reminded me of that field trip we took when I was a little kid back in the 70s. All the Texas kindergartners and first graders, they went to the Mrs. Baird's bread factory. And the smell of that yeast bread, it's incredible. I toasted up some slices, and this is what it looks like. Toasted on the griddle with some butter. It's so good. It makes a fantastic grilled cheese. And if you do that, you can have it with one of my soups. There's my roasted red pepper soup. It's also great with the tomato soup. Don't you just love my cast iron bread loaf pan? Oh my gosh, I love it. I'll link to it below. It's an 8x4 pan. When I had gone to the grocery store this past week, I noticed that our favorite sandwich bread is now more than $4 a loaf. $4 a loaf, y'all. So yeah, I'm gonna show you this recipe, and it's gonna be less than $1 to make this bread. So I hope it's helpful to you. This next recipe is for a honey cornbread mix. Now, if you aren't a fan of the honey part, if you like your cornbread more plain, I've got that recipe on my channel as well. We always make this in an iron skillet. I like crispy edges and a kind of a crunch on the bottom, and I think an iron skillet is the best way to achieve that. And please do keep in mind that I made these videos, some of them several years ago, and the ingredients that I'm using, the Thrive Life brand in particular, it is no longer available because they've gone out of business. But it's okay, you can use other brands in these recipes. I'll be using a quart-sized jar for this mix, and I was able to make 1 pan of cornbread, and I was using a 10-inch iron skillet. So in the bottom of your jar, you'll add an entire cup of all-purpose flour. If you're needing a gluten-free version of this recipe, I have that up on my channel already. Just look for the corn muffin recipe. And then you'll need a cup of cornmeal. And to that, you'll add 1/4 cup of our scrambled egg mix. And then also 1/2 cup of our sweet corn. Now you do need to either crush that or blend it in the blender so it refreshes in time. And there go the honey crystals. You also need 2 tablespoons of sugar. You need both kinds of sweetener in there. The sugar helps with browning and with crispy edges. We'll need some baking powder and some salt. That's going to give us good rise and good flavor. Okay, the butter powder is really for butter flavor. The heavy cream powder, as well as the sour cream powder and the instant milk, those all help to give you a fantastic texture and a really delicious cornbread. All right, and that is it. That's the mix, the honey cornbread mix that you could keep on your pantry shelf. And the idea here is this is the equivalent of keeping like a boxed mix on your shelf, so it's ready whenever you need it. When you're ready, you'll start out by heating your oven. You need to have it at 400 degrees, and go ahead and put your iron skillet in the oven or your pan and add some lard or shortening to it. It needs to melt. And then into a large bowl, you'll empty your cornbread mix and about 1 3/4 cup of water. That's all you have to add to it. So you'll give that a really good stir. You want to incorporate all that dry mix and those powders in with the liquid. And that is the consistency you are looking for in your cornbread batter. All right, now my iron skillet is piping hot and the lard that I put in there has melted. And then you just need to add about half of the liquid fat to your cornbread batter. Stir it good and quick. Make sure it gets all mixed in there. And then you'll add that batter straight into the hot skillet and the hot fat. And that's going to really help give you crispy edges and a nice browned bottom. You'll notice that it starts to cook immediately. All right, and then you'll need to place that in the oven and bake for about 20 to 25 minutes at 400 degrees. And this is what your cornbread will look like. Isn't it lovely? Nice and golden brown, really crispy edges. And then you can cut that and serve it up whenever you're ready. We like to serve this warm, especially with some butter on it. That's our favorite. But yeah, isn't that gorgeous? Just piping hot. And I hope you can tell the texture of this cornbread is nice and moist. It's not at all dried out. That honey in there helps to just keep some moisture in there, I think. And it's got a beautifully browned bottom, nice crispy edges. This is really yummy cornbread. We like to serve this with a pat of butter. Of course, butter makes everything better. And it's good by itself, but it's also the perfect accompaniment for any kind of soup or stew or chowder. My mama used to make this cornbread and serve it alongside a pot of beans. Sometimes beans and cornbread, that was our whole meal. Now, most of the time we did have it with some sort of meat because I have older brothers and they were always clamoring for meat. But it's just really good with pretty much anything you pair it with. Cornbread is very popular in Texas and in the South, I think. Yeah, that is a fantastic bite of cornbread. Now, there are some people who really do not like a sweet cornbread. They would be totally opposed to a honey cornbread. And I get it, but I really enjoy this recipe. I think the sweetness is really welcome. I served it alongside my chicken corn chowder, and it was super, super good. And if you really want to go all out, you can drizzle it with some extra honey. That's fantastic. Moving on, this next bread mix is for an artisan loaf. It's rustic. It's more like something you'd see maybe in an Italian restaurant, crusty on the outside, tender in the middle. You can use the same mix for pizza dough or stromboli, calzone, that kind of thing. You do have to let it rise for a couple of hours, but it's not a difficult bread to make. I love the fact that it's just 4 ingredients. It's flour, yeast, salt, and water. That's it. Now, in the past year, I figured out that I can make big batches of the mix, keep it on my pantry shelf, and just pull it out and make one loaf at a time. Each of these loaves is about a 1-pound loaf, so that's plenty for my family. I like being able to reach into the pantry, grab my gallon-sized mason jar, and just get out the mix for one loaf at a time. Now, when you put yeast into a mix that you're going to keep on your pantry shelf, just be aware of the expiration date on it. So when you buy this to make this recipe, make sure you're getting something that has a really good expiration date on it, and just be aware of that. I've not kept this on my shelf for longer than a year, so just keep that in mind. And yes, the yeast goes into the mix with the salt. I've never had any trouble with it. If this dough had like a 10% salt ratio, that I would worry about, but it doesn't. It has a really small amount of salt and with a lot of flour. The salt does not kill the yeast. It's fine. So don't worry about that. Now, this dough does need to be really good and hydrated. So when I make this loaf, I start by adding 3/4 cup of water, and I usually end up adding more, but I add it 1 tablespoon at a time and I stir. So what you're looking for is a dough that is really kind of tacky. You want it a little bit wet. You don't want any streaks of flour in there. You want it to be it's sticking to the bowl. So if you'll notice, that is the texture that you're looking for. See? It's got some stickiness to it. That's perfect. That's exactly what we want with this loaf. So what you want to do is cover this with plastic wrap, and you're going to let it set for 2 hours. Now, after this initial 2-hour rise, you can either put that in the fridge and leave it for up to 2 weeks, or you can bake it. I'm going to bake it today. After 2 hours, just take a look at that bread dough. Doesn't that look marvelous? It's got lots of bubbles. It's at least doubled in size, and it's nice and wet. That's exactly what you're looking for. Okay, so go ahead and preheat your oven to 425. Get out some parchment paper and sprinkle that with some cornmeal. I like to put a little flour down there too. You just don't want it to stick to the parchment paper, really. And then I also like to put some flour on the top of the dough and definitely flour my hands. So all you have to do is turn the dough out onto the parchment paper, and it'll be really pretty sticky, pretty tacky, and that's fine. That's what you want. So just get that out onto the parchment paper, onto your cornmeal, and it's gonna stick a little bit, and that's fine. That's perfect, in fact. That's exactly what you're looking for. So flour the top of your dough, gently pick it up, and all you want to do is tuck under the sides. So you're looking for more of a smooth top and tucked under. Okay, that's exactly what you want, is a kind of a round shape. Sprinkle the top with flour and then cut you several, maybe 1/4 inch, 1/2 inch deep slits in the top of your loaf. And what you're really doing here is you're giving it room to vent. So as that loaf rises, especially when it hits the oven heat, it's going to need a place to expand, and these slits will give it room. Okay, and I did trim my parchment paper just because the baking stone that I have in my oven is small and I thought it would fit better. Okay, so do make sure you put your baking stone in your oven. Mine is a Pampered Chef baking stone that I got at Goodwill. My oven was not quite preheated yet, so I'm going to let that sit on my countertop. All right, now it hasn't been but maybe 10 minutes or so, and look at how much that bread has expanded. So see where we cut those slits, and it is continuing to rise on the countertop. I just think that is beautiful bread dough. I love it so much. This is a family favorite. Everybody loves this bread. All right, now that my oven is preheated, I'm going to show you how I put it in there. So I just bring out the rack just a little bit, the rack with the baking stone, and I put that bread dough straight on there, and then underneath there I've got a pan that I put in the oven maybe 5 minutes ago. It's good and hot, and I'm putting 1 cup of hot water in there. Close that oven, and you need to bake it at 425 for about 25 minutes or so, just until it's dark as you like it to be. All right, let's look at our beautiful loaf of artisan bread. You can take that out of your oven. I think after about 10 minutes, I removed the parchment paper to make sure the bottom of it got nice and crispy. And isn't that gorgeous? Oh my goodness, y'all. It is so delicious. It's beautiful. It's just like something you get from a bakery. And how simple was that? Just 4 ingredients. I am in love with artisan bread. After about 10 minutes of resting, you can go ahead and slice your loaf of artisan bread. This is how I always do mine. I cut it in half first, and just look at that gorgeous loaf. See all the little bubbles in there from the air rising and the yeast doing its job? The bottom and the top are nice and crunchy. It's got a crunchy exterior and a really soft middle. So anyway, I set that flat on the cut edge, and then I slice. And I'm sorry, my ugly fat fingers are in the way there. This is a better angle. That is how I slice my bread. And if by some miracle you have some leftovers, this makes the best grilled cheese sandwiches ever. Oh, it's so good. It's good with some butter, of course, and it's fantastic with my garlic olive oil dip. I will link that below. I have a video for that. It's a YouTube short video, and it's wonderful. And don't forget, this same dough that can give you that loaf, you can also use for pizza crust or for stromboli, calzone, that kind of thing. The only difference is you need to add 1 tablespoon of olive oil to the dough, and that's the only difference. All right, here is one of my oldest and dearest recipes. It's for my biscuit mix. Hey friends, I need to restock my pantry today. I am almost completely out of my biscuit mix, and this is a just add water mix, and you can make just 1 biscuit at a time if that's what you are wanting to do. Now I like to get out my flour and just give it a nice little stir. I like to fluff it up just a little bit. I think it helps if you do level it off, just so you know how many cups of flour you're actually getting in there. I probably should do a scale. I haven't broken down and bought one of those yet, but yeah, so in goes like 5 cups of flour. And you know what I did? And I probably shouldn't have done it, but I tripled the recipe. This is because I wanted to make like a good amount of mix. So I tripled the recipe. And my poor little food processor, it was just overflowing just about. It was probably too much to put in there. So note to self, next time I make this, I'll probably do a double recipe and then just do it again. And that way I'll have a quadruple recipe that I can put into my container, but hopefully I won't overload my food processor. All right, so I'm just spooning out ingredients and putting them into the food processor. And what I like to do first is put all of the dry ingredients in there and give it a little bit of a pulse and just, mix those dry ingredients before I put in the fat. Now, my favorite fat to put in there, if you've seen my videos, my previous videos, I love to use lard. I think it gives you like super flaky and tender, wonderful biscuits. They are a little bit crusty on the outside and really pillowy soft in the middle. Lard biscuits are just the best things ever, but I understand like not everybody is comfortable with lard. Maybe you should try it. I'm just saying. You can buy it in the oil section of the grocery store. I get mine at Walmart. But if you don't like lard or don't want to use lard and you're like a shortening person, then you can use shortening instead if you like. Now here's the deal, guys. Since you've already included the fat in the mix, you are going to need to use this within probably 3 or 4 months. You can keep it on the counter, it's fine. But if you don't use it all up within that time period, just go ahead and stick it in the fridge, just so the fat won't go rancid on you. And this is a page from my second cookbook. I converted that recipe that I just showed you into a jalapeno cheddar biscuit by adding some, jalapenos and some cheddar. And it's so good. All right, y'all, you know me. I'm not just gonna give you a recipe without actually making it for you. So here we go. I'm gonna mix up just enough for 2 biscuits, so like 1 serving. And I have on my little instructions to add 1/4 cup of water, but I always go a little bit less on that. So it depends on the weather, it depends on a lot of stuff, but I usually start out with maybe 3 tablespoons. And I think this day I ended up adding about 3.5 tablespoons. And then you'll have to get your hands in there. You'll flour your surface, flour your hands, and then you just kind of pat it out and fold it a couple of times. And all you're doing here really is adding some layers in the biscuit. It'll create a nice kind of middle for you to be able to split your biscuit and put some butter in there or jelly or whatever you're going to do with it. So this will make 2 biscuits. I cut mine in half and then I decided to squeeze in the sides and make them round. You can make whatever shape biscuits you like. You could definitely just bake some rectangle biscuits or square biscuits, totally up to you. But I do like to keep them somewhere around maybe 3/4 of an inch high. I don't like to get them too thin. I like a taller biscuit. So anyway, those are ready to bake. You can bake them in the oven. You can put them in a toaster oven. I'm putting them in my air fryer. I didn't even know you could do this. I looked it up on the internet and they said, yeah, you can make biscuits in the air fryer. So I ended up putting mine at 375 and I cooked those for 8 minutes. Or actually, I think I took them out at about 7 minutes. Yeah, a little bit more than 7 minutes. I took mine out because they were smelling so good. And I thought, yeah, that looked great. I did paint the tops of those biscuits with a little bit of butter and it helped with the browning. Y'all, my biscuits were fantastic. They were really soft in the middle, really fluffy. So I hope you can see how gorgeous they are in the middle. When I had originally filmed this video, I also included the recipe for the sausage gravy that you're seeing here in this footage. And I also had a muffin mix from that video. So I'll be sure and link to this below just in case you want to make the sausage gravy or if you're interested in the muffin mix as well. But I wanted to go ahead and leave the video footage in here just so you could see me cut into the biscuit and see what it looked like. It's really, really tender. It's a great biscuit recipe, I promise. If you try it, I think you're going to like it. Just look at the top of that biscuit, y'all. And then the interior, isn't it just fluffy and oh, so pretty? Y'all, I'm telling you, they're so tender and so perfect. I really hope y'all will make this mix and then let me know what you think about it. I just think it's one of the best things ever. Yeah, and here I put some grape jelly on there. And they are so good with jelly, butter, and some sort of jam. So tasty. And last but certainly not least, I wanted to include my English muffin bread mix. It's a combination of a yeast bread and a quick bread it's actually a batter bread. You just mix up the dough in the bowl and pour the batter into the loaf pan, let it rise, and bake it. There's no kneading involved. It's a great beginner bread. This bread is one of those really quick breads. It's actually ready in less than an hour, but I do like to let it cool completely before I slice it. It's so tasty, it's so easy, it's great to have on hand. All right, so you'll start with your bread pan. I love that cast iron bread pan that I got on Amazon. I think it's an 8.5 by 4.5, but it bakes really evenly. I like the crust that it gives the bread. But anyway, so I put some oil down in the bottom and brush the sides, the corners especially, and even the little edges, the rim around the edge. And then it's ready for the cornmeal. So just give it a good dusting of cornmeal. I think that, that texture and that flavor is kind of a signature English muffin type of flavor and texture. So go ahead and dust it with cornmeal, and the oil will help the cornmeal to stick and help the bread not to stick. So it's awesome. And then I fluff up my flour, and it's just a couple cups of flour for this one loaf. Now, if you were going to make this as a mix in a jar, you could put all of these ingredients, layer them into a quart-sized jar, or like I have 3-cup jars, but not everybody has those, but you could just put this in a quart-sized jar. But since I'm going to go ahead and bake it, I'm just going to put it straight into my bowl. Now, I included some butter powder in this, but don't feel like you have to. If you don't have butter powder, you can leave it out. I like it because I like the flavor that it brings. It's this nice light butter flavor, but it's definitely not one of those ingredients that you have to have. It doesn't matter what order you put it in if you're going to bake it directly, but if you're going to make this as a mix in a jar, it kind of does matter, because you want to separate your yeast from your honey or your sugar, whichever one you're using, and from your soda, because you don't want it to get activated. All right. So if you're going to make this as a mix in a jar, then go ahead and put the yeast at the bottom of your jar, or maybe in between your cups of flour or something like that, and put some sort of a barrier in between the yeast and either the honey or the sugar, whichever one you want to use. I'm using honey here, but you can also use sugar. All right, so here's a picture of that mix in a jar that I was talking about, and see how I separated the yeast at the bottom from the honey. I layered it because I thought it looked pretty, but just so you separate them somehow, it should be fine, and it should be good for as long as your yeast is good. All right, so when you're ready to bake this, you'll just put your mix into a bowl and add some warm water. And you want it to be at about 110 degrees. So for me, that's just the hot water that comes out of my faucet. And then you can give that a good stir. And it really is the consistency of batter. See how moist that is? That's exactly what you want. You might be tempted to put more flour in it, but don't. You want this bread like a really high hydration bread. You want it more like a batter. Smooth it out, and then you need to let it rest. And I put mine in my oven with just the light on. The heat wasn't on, just the light was on, and I let it sit there for 20 minutes. And see how much it has already risen? It rises beautifully. So I took it out of the oven. I'm going to sprinkle the top with cornmeal now. And then I turned on my oven to preheat it to 375. You can just let this sit on your counter for another few minutes, and then you can bake it. If you enjoy cooking with freeze-dried foods, please consider owning my cookbooks. They're both available on Amazon in paperback and as a digital download on my website, thefreezedriedfoodie.com. I'll link to both below. If you own freeze-dried food and want to be able to cook delicious meals with it, then you'll love having my cookbooks. They're loaded with completely shelf-stable meals and mixes. And although I wrote the recipes with Thrive Life ingredients in mind, you can use any brand, including home freeze-dried foods. All right, back to the recipe. So this is what it looks like after about half an hour in the oven. So I baked mine for 20 minutes uncovered, and then I covered it with some foil and baked it another 5 or 10 minutes, something like that. I do suggest you take it out of the pan and let it completely cool on a wire rack, and then you can slice it up. Isn't it lovely? I love the cornmeal on the outside. I just think it's really a pretty loaf. I think bread's pretty. Maybe because I like to eat it so much, I think it's beautiful. I love the way this smells. I'm gonna slice it up here and let you see the interior of this bread. I think it's so gorgeous. Just look at all those nooks and crannies. Isn't that beautiful? I lost my lighting here. I'm sorry the lighting's not good, but it was all cloudy outside when I was trying to film this part. But anyway, there's our English muffin loaf, and I just think it is a fantastic loaf. It tastes great, okay? And definitely you could just, butter some and eat it or whatever. But I think the best way to enjoy this bread is toast it. That's the idea here. Let this cool completely and then slice it and toast it. I love the crunchy kind of crust exterior. You can put butter on it or jam or whatever. I really like it with jam, but we've done other things with it as well. For instance, we've had it with bacon and scrambled eggs and cheese like a sandwich, and oh, it's so good. But definitely toast it. It's best toasted, and just that amazing exterior, that cornmeal crust. It's just so reminiscent of an actual English muffin, but without all of the fuss. When you cook English muffins, you have to grill them, but also steam them. And it's just too much for me. Anyway, this is a great alternative, and it tastes just like an English muffin. If you were looking for a particular kind of bread mix that I didn't include in this video, be sure to visit my channel where I have lots of other bread recipes. French bread, potato rolls, hamburger buns, cinnamon bread, cinnamon buns, cinnamon rolls. You get the idea. I have a bread recipe playlist if you want to check that out. I'll include my cookbook links below, as well as my Amazon storefront, where I have lots of recommendations for cookware, bakeware, and all that jazz. Anytime you shop with my link, it helps support my channel. Well, thank y'all so much for spending some time with me today. I hope you enjoyed these older videos. I will link to the original videos down below. That's where you'll find the written recipes. I just don't have enough room to write all these recipes down below in this description box. So yeah, I'll link to the original videos, and that's where you can find them. Please be a friend and smash that thumbs up button and leave me a comment below. That always really helps my videos. Now it's time for our verse of the day. Today's scripture verse is Joshua 1:9, and it reads, "Have I not commanded you? Be strong and courageous. Do not be frightened and do not be dismayed, for the Lord your God is with you wherever you go." Amen. Well, all right, y'all. I hope you have a blessed day, a wonderful week, and until next time, y'all take care and keep thriving.